हेलो एंड वेलकम टू एग्जाम शाला में आप सभी का एक बार फिर से स्वागत है। टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू सी सम इंपॉर्टेंट न्यूज़ एंड एडिटोरियल एनालिसिस ऑफ 1st of October 2021. But before getting started, kindly do like, share, subscribe our channel on YouTube. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook and Telegram. Now let us move on to the main content. Moving on to the first important news is the renaming of the midday meal scheme. Now what is important that we have to learn from this news is, first, the midday meal scheme, which under the PM Poshan Yojana has been renamed as PM Poshan Scheme under the Nutrition Mission, and a new amount of money has been evaluated and under the Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs CCEA, which is chaired by the Prime Ministers, and the members includes like Education Minister, Economic Affairs Ministers, Corporate Ministers and many others as per directed by the Prime Minister itself. So based on these ideas, a new committee has declared that it will be renamed as PM Poshan, and the plan has been increased that it has given 24 lakh preschools has been added after that. So we have to understand 3 points, what schools and what kind of schools are being included in this. So 24 lakh students receiving pre-primary school. So in the pre-primary section, similarly government schools and government aided schools. So schools which are government and government aided are being used in the recent area in this particular region, and that is near about in preschool it is 24 lakh students. This scheme is running under the Department of Education, which was initially named as Ministry of Human Resource and Development. The name has been changed. It is Education Ministry, where it is headed by Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan. Another important news is regarding India and UK likely to join the COP26 summit. COP summit is Convention of Parties. So on the sidelines of UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. So there has been meetings, regular meetings, bi-annual meetings every after 2 years. There is a meeting of biannual, and that meeting is renamed as Convention of Party. So based on that, a 26th convention is getting organized, and it is getting organized in Scotland. And India and UK are going to announce a green grid under the program called One Nation, One Sun, One Grid, OSOWOG. That is based on related to our International Solar Alliance program. There will be a green grid plan which will be jointly accepted by India and the United Kingdoms, and the program will be renamed as One Nation, One Grid, One Solar Group, ONOSG, and that summit is going to happen in Scotland, which is in the United Kingdom. Moving on to some important articles regarding is a very important article about the rural debt trap. What is rural debt trap and how it is affecting the local rural areas, and how it is so far indulging in how the role of non-purchase player are being taking player in the major rural crisis, and how can the rural economy can come out of it. We are going to discuss. It is very important, and it is going to come in the paper of GS3, that is growth and development, loan, economic development, agricultural, as well as all around social and human resource development. So the recent study of All India Debt Investment Surveys, ADs, carried out by the National Statistics Office, भारतीय सांख्यिकी आयोग, that is National Statistics Office, ने एक सर्वे कराया है under the name called All India Debt and Investment Surveys, जो कि कर्ज और इन्वेस्टमेंट की स्टडी करती है, and that has found a very important thing, that if there are easy and timely access to formal credit sectors. Now what is formal sectors of credit? Like the banks, self-help groups, SHGs, नाबार्ड, इस तरह की जो सरकारी संस्थाएं हैं, जो फॉर्मल चीज़ें हैं, इफ़ सही टाइम पर रूरल एरियाज़ में और इवन इन अर्बन एरियाज हाउस होल्ड्स आर एबल टू गेट लोन्स, दे enables household to invest in income and generating activities. That means if some households are able to get loans from the regulated sectors, like from the banks or in the insurance companies or even investment companies, LICs, etc., Now they will generate income generating activities, but only if they are going to get loans from the formal sector. यानी कि फॉर्मल सेक्टर से अगर आपको लोन मिलता है, that too easily and timely, then it is profitable, which further lends to tend to increase in the economic generating as well as income generating activities. But due to the presence or due to the absence of these institutional groups, what happens कि हर जगह पर in every sectors the bankings are not that penetrated. Everybody is not liable to get loan. हर व्यक्ति को लोन बैंकों से या सरकारी उपक्रमों से मिल नहीं पाता. So they move to private players, private companies, private money lenders and private financing bodies, and these are called non-institutional sources. So in the absence of institutional sources, नॉन इंस्टीट्यूशनल जो है वो शॉर्ट टर्म कंजम्पशन नीड्स पे देखा गया है. दैट मीन्स दो चीज़ें देखी गई हैं. फर्स्ट इज़ जो नॉन इंस्टीट्यूशनल जगहों से लोन लिया जाता है, दैट इज़ ओनली एंड ओनली फॉर शॉर्ट टर्म कंजम्पशन नीड्स, दैट इज़ टू ओनली कंज्यूम, वेयर एज the loans has been taken from the formal sector is more related to investment and income generation. That is, so जो नॉन इंस्टीट्यूशनल सेक्टर से जो लोग लोन रहे हैं, दैट इज दे आर पुअर पीपल, दे आर बोरिंग लेस एंड दे आर ओनली एंड ओनली बोरिंग फॉर कंजम्पशन, बट दे आर नॉट जनरेटिंग एनी काइंड ऑफ इनकम और एक्टिविटीज रिगार्डिंग इट. वेयर एज if the loans has been taken from the formal sector, the more income generation activities are being taking place. This has been found from the surveys. Secondly, it also revealed कि जो नॉन इंस्टीट्यूशनल सेक्टर्स और सोर्सेज हैव अ स्ट्रॉन्ग प्रेजेंस इन द रूरल क्रेडिट मार्केट. शहरों में, अर्बन एरियाज में there are large number of banks and other formal sectors where loans can be easily be get. But in the rural areas, due to non-access of formal sectors, जो non-informal sectors are more, non-institutional sectors are more, and that is why rural areas is more in debt. It has also been found that the average amount of loan taken in the rural areas is nearly half in the urban area. यानी कि शहरी क्षेत्रों के मुकाबले ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में जो लोन लिया जाता है वो लगभग एवरेज उसका आधा होता है. बट फ़र्क ये होता है दैट इज़ इन टेकिंग द शहरों क्षेत्रों में, सो इन अर्बन एरियाज, शहरी क्षेत्रों में द लोन इज़ बिन टेकन टू इन्वेस्ट इन द इनकम जनरेशन एंड इंडस्ट्रियल एक्टिविटीज़, वेयर एज इन द रूरल एरियाज लोन इज़ टेकन बेसिकली फॉर द कंजम्पशन मेथड और फॉर फार्मिंग मेथड्स. सो there has also been a survey that share of debt from the institutional credit agencies in total outstanding debt in rural India is 68%. That means कि जो institutional credit है compared to 87% in urban India. Out of 100 loans, अगर शहरों में 100 व्यक्ति लोन ले रहे हैं, उसमें से 87 लोन जो होते हैं वो फॉर्मल सेक्टर से आते हैं, लाइक बैंक और कॉरपोरेशंस और अदर गवर्नमेंट एंटरप्राइजेस. वेयर एज यही चीज़ हम गाँव पहुँचते हैं तो 100 में से केवल 66 और इसमें भी और ज़्यादा डिफ़ॉल्ट होता है. दैट मीन्स कि गाँव में, रूरल एरियाज़ में नॉन इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर यानी कि जो नॉन इंस्टीट्यूशनल सेक्टर है दैट इज़ मोर एंड द लोन कैपेसिटी इज़ मोर, एंड दैट इज़ वाई द कंजम्पशन लेवल इज़ मोर एट द रूरल एरियाज़, वेयर एज इन अर्बन एरियाज़ इट इज़ कंपेरेटिवली लेस. एंड व्हाट हैपन्स इज़ बिकॉज ऑफ द नॉन इंस्टीट्यूशनल डेप्ट, जो एग्रीकल्चर और मनी लेंडर जो होते हैं, they are the most primary lenders in the rural area, and since they are charging more amount as part of interest, there is no such kind of development in the rural areas. A significant portion of debt जो है वो household expenditure में खर्च किया जा रहा है. ये भी that has been studied because of the more interest rate, they are not being able to invest in other investment and economic generation activities. So 2 points have been found out. First, in the rural areas, the major sector which is providing loan is informal sector, and secondly, that loan has been basically taken for household consumption, not for generating any kind of activities. Similarly, अगर कोई body available नहीं है, at the same time there is no asset, so loans are being given on the cost of mortgage that you have on the security. So the poor people, mostly which are living in the rural areas, don't have much of security. That is, they cannot put any kind of security against the loan. So the very few people are having security so that they can put inside the loan. So that means poor people in the rural areas are actually not getting loans. That means they are only being laborers. Secondly, If we are coming to the purpose of securities and social identities, it is being also seen in the rural areas. ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में जो शेड्यूल टाइप्स है, शेड्यूल क्लास है, उनके पास भी लैंड राइट्स नहीं होते. दे आर नॉट हैविंग लैंड पोजीशंस in comparison to other castes, and since they are not having land positions, they are not eligible to get loan because of they are not able to deposit some kind of securities. And that is why it was seen कि सबसे पहले तो रूरल एरियाज़ में इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर का प्रभाव ज़्यादा है. सेकेंडली उन सेक्टर्स में भी जो लोन मिलता है, दे आर बीइंग गिवन टू द इन्फ्लुएंशियल सेक्टर, not to the poor or not to the socially and educationally backward classes. So this is very problem in the system, and what we need to do is we need to increase the availability of the formal loans. Self-help groups, NABARD or any other sub kinds of primary credit source, credit income, credit guarantee schemes, किसान credit card into the rural areas, so that कि गांव के लोगों को नॉन इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर से लेंड लेने की ज़रूरत ना पड़े, एंड दे विल बी लेस डेप्ट, एंड जो इंटरेस्ट रेट होगा वो भी कम होगा, एंड द मोर दे विल गेट लोन्स for doing business, then there will be more income generation, which will turn increase employment. So the credit policy needs to be revamped to accommodate the consumption needs of the rural poor, and find the alternatives कि जिनके पास ज़मीन या और भी कुछ सिक्योरिटीज़ रखने के लिए नहीं है, ऐसे सोशल कास्ट, ऐसे पुअर कास्ट को और किन तरीके से लोन या फिर एक्सेसिव इंसेंटिव दी जा सकती है in order to get investment, in order to generate the economic activities. Moving on to another important article is about the new agriculture innovation in the GS paper 3. That is, recently IARI, that is Indian Agriculture Research Institute, has directly found as a new variety, had developed a new variety which is both herbicide tolerant. Now what is herbicide? So herbicides is something which is being spread on the weeds. Weeds क्या होती हैं? So if in a farm, suppose we are growing paddy, ठीक है, हम धान उगा रहे हैं, धान के उगने के साथ साथ उसमें जो और भी अन्य घास और अन्य वैरायटीज़ की चीज़ें जो उगती हैं, विच इज़ नॉट नेसेसरी. और होता ही है कि जो न्यूट्रिशन हम ज़मीन में, जो फर्टिलाइजर्स, जो पानी देते हैं, दैट इज़ ऑल्सो बीइंग यूज्ड बाय सच नॉन इम्पॉर्टेंट प्लांट्स, एंड दैट इज़ व्हाई दे आर कॉल्ड वीड्स. हिंदी में उन्हें खरपतवार कहा जाता है. सो दिस वीड्स आर एक्चुअली टेक द न्यूट्रिशन एंड फर्टिलाइजर्स विच इज़ बेसिकली मेंट फॉर the paddy crop, and that is why in order to kill those weeds, a special type of chemical is used which is known as herbicide. Now होता ये था कि पहले जब हम herbicide स्प्रे करते थे तो पैडी के क्रॉप को भी नुकसान पहुंचता था. तो अब ऐसी वैरायटी फाइंड की गई है जिस पैडी की, जिसमें दो फ़ायदे हैं. पहले कि आपको पता है कि पैडी की खेती होती है, पहले यू हैव टू सो सम सीड्स, और फिर वहाँ से 1-2-3 महीने बाद यू हैव टू टेक आउट द सैपलिंग्स, और फिर उन सैपलिंग्स को अलग अलग निकाल कर फिर इक्वल प्लांटेशन किया जाता था. ना अब ये चीज़ करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. यू कैन डायरेक्टली सो द सीड्स, सीधा हम बीज डाल सकते हैं धान के खेत में, और वो सारी की सारी बीज जो है वो हर्बिसाइड रेजिस्टेंट भी हैं. दैट मीन्स दे विल नॉट बी एनी इफेक्ट. अगर उन पर हर्बिसाइड स्प्रे करते हैं तो उन पैडी क्रॉप्स पर कोई इफेक्ट नहीं पड़ेगा, ओनली द वीड्स विल बी गेट लॉस्ट. और इससे देयर इज़ ए बेनिफिट ऑफ 3000 रुपीज़ पर एकड़ टू द फार्मर्स. सिमिलरली 30% ऑफ द वाटर्स एंड 10 to 15 days ऑफ टाइम हैव बीन सेव्ड. So this is a very important innovation and research, and the name of that particular herbicide is imazotafire. So imazotafire weedicide has been used, which was initially used to kill the weeds. Now ये जो नई seeds बनी है, the newly modified seed which has been invented is actually resistant to the so-called herbicide of imazotafire. That means this weedicide or this herbicide will not have any effect on the paddy crop. पैडी के क्रॉप पर इसका कोई भी इफेक्ट नहीं होने वाला है, बिकॉज इट इज़ फाइंड एंड जेनेटिकली मॉडिफाइड. सो व्हाट विल द बेनिफिट? पहला बेनिफिट ये होगा कि वी डू नॉट हैव टू ट्रांसप्लांट एंड ग्रो पैडी इन द फ्लडेड फील्ड्स. सो वी डू नॉट नीड टू टेक another saplings and to wait for 10 to 15 days and then take back the saplings and individually plant them. सो धान की खेती में जो पहले सीड उगाकर आपको अलग अलग सैपलिंग्स लेने होते, अलग अलग पौधे, फिर उन पौधों को निकाल कर फिर से बुआई करनी पड़ती थी, ये प्रोसेस करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. सो वी आर गेटिंग टाइम, मनी, फर्टिलाइज़र. ऑल्सो दैट प्लांट इज़ हर्बिसाइड रेजिस्टेंस. तो उस खेतों में जो अन्य घास या अन्य अनवांटेड ग्रोथ होती है, अनवांटेड वेजिटेशन का ग्रोथ होता है, अनवांटेड वेजिटेशन, दिस वेजिटेशन कैन बी cleaned out, taken out by spreading the herbicides, which in turn is not going to affect that main paddy crop. Why? Because it has been developed in such a manner. So this IRA variety, there is no need for more of this. तो इम्पॉर्टेंट कि अब ऐसी चीज़ों में खास करके एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर को इफ़ रियली वांट टू मेक इट अ बेनिफिशियल सेक्टर, वी नीड टू इन्वेस्ट इन दिस काइंड ऑफ सच काइंड ऑफ रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट टेक्निक्स जो टाइम, समय, पानी और पैसा तीनों ही बचाए. So what we need to do is, in spite of just putting our all the politics behind MSP for extra things, we should invest our money in agriculture research. तो फार्मर्स की इनकम दो तरह से डबल हो सकती है. आइदर उनको आउटपुट प्राइस ज़्यादा मिले, बट प्रॉब्लम ये है कि द फार्मर्स आर अश्योर्ड ऑफ मोर आउटपुट प्राइस, द कॉस्ट ऑफ दैट प्राइस विल बी हायर, and when this price will come to the market, this will be further higher. So what will happen is, definitely farmer will get more prices, but the common people in the common market, the thing will go more and more inflated and the price will rise, and at the result of this there will be less purchase. So in the another season there will be automatically less demand and the price will go down. So it is further going to harm the farmer in the next coming years. So the original thing is, in order to increase the income of farmer, what we need to do is we need to decrease the cost input. And how we can decrease the cost input? By decreasing the cost of water, labor, time and fertilizers. And these things can be done by using innovations and research and technology in the field of agriculture or research. And that is why the government needs to do away with the MSP politics and to focus more and more in the research based activities, because nowadays with the global warming and the climate change, what is happening is the monsoons are failing. Okay, the climate cycle is been changing, in order which the rain normally, which has to be the monsoon season from July to September, now it is being increasing, from it is being changing time from August to October. So times are changing, climate is also changing. So what we need to do is we need to make or develop such climate resistance crops where the basic output can be grown. Growing crops and rearing animals can be the basic feature in order to make farmer a benefit. In order to make agriculture a profit making business, we need to do focus on animal rearing, especially honeycombing like pisciculture, floriculture, fisheries, dairy industries, and growing further crops which are suitable to the climate as well as their climate resistance. Proper seedings, proper high variety seeds, more modified seed, more climate resistant seed which requires less water and less fertilizer can be used and can be implemented in order to make more benefit of the region. So cropping with these stresses requires new breeding approach. That is, we need to do away with low input and high input agriculture technology and really maintain a green revolution, a second green revolution, which is also known as, we don't want another green revolution, what we want is an evergreen revolution. So it should not be fixed to a particular time frame, but it should be a continuous process, and we should increase productivity, but at the same time we should decrease the cost of productivity so that the agriculture or the farming will become a more profit business. So research, unlike subsidies and other welcome schemes like Karz Maafi or loan forgiving schemes, loan granting schemes, these kind of schemes are actually going to hamper the economy. If really the government wants to spend money, they can spend money in researches and developing more climate resistant seeds and foods, not on these extra activities. Now moving on to the important article about the misconception. We know that there are two words, pandemic and infodemic. So pandemic means spread of disease, uncontrollable disease in more than one countries of a particular region in a continent. And similarly, infodemic comes with pandemic. Infodemic means spreading of unauthenticated news and facts and information regarding these diseases, which is more deadlier than the pandemic. Wrong information is actually more vital and more fatal than a wrong incident, which has been proved. And since there was a misconception regarding smoking and the COVID cases, that we'll see what was this and how it has been down. What happened in the last year during the first wave of pandemic, some of the researchers in France and later in China, India published that there seemed to be smokers who used to smoke they used to say some kind of immunity in contracting COVID. That is, they will not be contracted with COVID if they are smoking, and even if they are contracted with COVID, the fatality will be less and there will be less severe system. So there was some kind of initial finding in this, and that encouraged smokers, people who left smoking, who were on the verge of leaving smoking, again started back. Some people started to smoke in order to not to get caught in the COVID area, especially in the European and the Western countries. So smoking and the consumption of tobacco was increased. Later on, it was found that some of these research papers, some of the research organizations which were doing the research had some kind of links with the tobacco industries, and that is why it was found that in order to increase their sale, it was a kind of false report or unauthenticated report. But recently, there has been a new study found in England that found that 80% of the smokers, so most of the smokers who are getting chance of hospitalized by contracting virus, so there has been negation of that particular news. The news which initially that people who smoke are not going to caught in the COVID virus pandemic, now it is found that out of 100 suffering from COVID, 80 of them were smokers who used to have to be hospitalized. So if you are a smoker, then your lungs are definitely at a bad condition, and 80% of them will have to be hospitalized, more likely to be hospitalized after contracting the virus. So it was a wrong misconception that led to France, especially people you used to rush on the tobacco stores, and the tobacco consumption increased tenfold. But the actual finding and the more authentic finding has been come from England, which says no, smoking is not a key, or it cannot prevent you from having COVID. Rather, it makes you more vulnerable. So if you are contracted with COVID and you are a smoker, there are 80% chances that you will be hospitalized in this. And so this section of the original study, which was initially saying that smokers will not get COVID affected, was later on found out to be influenced by some kind of tobacco based organizations, and this really hampered many people who started smoking again. Many people were the new smokers. So it really, the misconception infodemic spread a lot of bad news and changed and kind of hampered the social and healthy life of people. All this, while it burns to a huge hole, suddenly what happens is there is economic loss, health loss, and social loss as well. So smoking is definitely never a good exercise, even if prevents you from some kind of disease, which is later been rejected by the many organizations. What happens is smoking is also causes you economic loss, health loss, and social loss, and definitely our health deteriorates. So from France, where it is called the birthplace of existentialism, there was a hope that smoking can reduce from suffering from COVID. But from England, the real report has been came, and it says the philosophy of utilitarianism, that is the principle of usability and digestibility, that it has been taken away. So tobacco smokers or the smokers of cigarette smokers are actually more on the risk to be, the effect of COVID can be worse on the people who use tobacco or use smoke. So there should be a misconception or infodemic regarding such has led to change and led to make many people smoke, and they definitely deteriorated the health and the environment of the country. And that is why we should be very careful in these kind of pandemic times. In order to believe any kind of information, we should check the authenticity, wait for some of the results. We should not haste on making decisions, because information, a bad information, a wrong information is definitely more worse than an actual worse event. So this was all for today's video. We'll see you in the next video. Till then, take care. 2nd of October, and we know that day is very famous for the birth anniversary of two great leaders of our country. One definitely a post pre-India independence, and another after the independence of India. One is the father of the freedom movement, or the father of nation, Shri Mahatma Gandhi ji, and another is Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri ji. So he both were the proponents of non-violence and good governance, rural empowerment, rural economies, farmers, jurists, etc. Both were seen as a great leaders, and India remembers them on their birth anniversary. So we should not only remember 2nd of October as the birth date of Mahatma Gandhi ji, but also our late Prime Minister Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri ji, who accidentally died during the conference in Tashkent after winning the battle of 1965, and he gave a very important slogan of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. Later on, it was added by Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, and Jai Vigyan. So we remember these two stalwart leaders and try to indulge their principles, ideals, ideologies in our life, and we can really accept and become a good persons in our future day. And our youngsters should also follow these idea and ideals in order to make India a better place in the world. Moving on to the important article is the recently a space unilateral declaration and the agreement or the commitment of the countries, especially the US and India commitment in regarding the cooperation in the space sector. With the recent movement of the Indian Prime Minister and meeting the US President Joe Biden, besides of the UN summit and other UN declarations, we discussed a lot of issues and we developed a consensus on the state of the space cooperation and what kind of consensus is a space cooperation, how we can be a major partner in the coming age of space exploration, because nowadays the land has become shorter and sky has become the limit, and new space sector is emerging, like space sectors in the field of space tourism or even space diplomacy, communication, transfer, defense, technology, etc. So we cannot be leaving behind in these other states in the particular regions, and definitely in that sense our organization like ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, is doing pretty well. We have been a top entrepreneur, especially in the case of satellites launching and the PSLV polar satellite launching vehicles. So definitely we have contributed and point a move to a consensus in the field of space cooperation, and we'll see what this has been done. So recently the Prime Minister has been meeting and has met US President Joe Biden and has committed on various issues, and definitely they have made a consensus to cooperate each other in the evolving space domain, which is both commerce as well as constellation. That is, it is a greenfield sector, and more investments and more development business are going to happen in the coming decade in the space technology, especially as we live in the age of technologies where technologies and new methods innovations are continuously happening in the fraction of seconds. And since 21st century is being referred as century of innovation, there are two kinds of innovation has been taken. One space, that is the cyberspace, and another is the outer space. So cyberspace and outer space have become the two important regions for domains for the innovations and technology. And since we are having already developed and already cooperated in the field of cyberspace, that is the information technology and other soft skills, we need to focus more and more on the outer space. And outer space connectivity means satellites, explorations, launching, security, digital communication, etc. And this is why Delhi has been given a more attention toward this. And outer space becomes a location for a lucrative business nowadays. Space tourism is catching up business economy, investments, deals, fragments, FDIs are being interested. Indian government has recently opened the direct investment route in the space development sectors, definitely for the commercial sector, not for the security services, but it is going to be the future of the recent eras, and definitely we need to cooperate in this era. And similarly, all Quad members can also increase their cooperation as a bilateral level. Delhi and Washington has agreed to intensify in the space cooperation, and these private entities are now becoming a major player in the space commerce, as we have seen the projects like Stardust or Tesla project, or even the Amazon companies as doing a private related space launches in order to attain the so-called of outer edge and edge in the space diplomacy, space tourism. Why we cannot, when the private player is being coming, the competition is going to be more and more lucrative business is going to become. And since India is having a better advantage, like the ISROs and organizations are quite capable of launching satellites, vehicles, so why we cannot stay behind in the coming into century? If really we want to become a 5 trillion economy, we can definitely have to invest our resources in this emerging sector, like of that artificial intelligence in the economic sector, and similarly space economy, traveling, tourism and cooperation in the outer space sector. So both the emerging space, be it cyberspace or it outer space, we can contribute and we can definitely lead, or we can be in the line of the top leaders in order to attain much from the following regions. And that is why there is a growing competition among states, countries also, and China, which is also an important player in the Asiatic region. So apart from having competitions on the land borders, sea borders, now we are also having a facing competition the space borders as well. So as the space sector is important for India, USA, so as it is for the Chinese companies, and definitely a competition for the space exploration and better advantages of the gaining technologies is also going to happen between the two emerging neighbors, major economic giants, that is India and China. And has led to a new term called astropolitics, that who will gain advantages, who will have more power, more influences in the political and astrological regions. So in the space politics or space diplomacy has turned out to be a astropolitics, that is both civilian as well as military. And we know military use of satellite is very much more nowadays. Accuracy of the satellites, surveilling, ranging, snooping, spying, health technology, stealth technology, how we can not come into the radar or detection system against our enemies, and how can we do our attacks swiftly, pinpointing the targets. These all can be done by the use of efficient satellites and the GPS networks. India is also developing its own GPS called Navik, navigation in Indian constellation Navik, and we have currently is functioning. Just few technical gaps are remaining. Otherwise, we can be easily it can be Navik constellation can easily be working in the coming 2 or 3 years. So we will have our own GPS system. We don't have to share our location with other countries, and that will be very much useful in the military warfare in order to lock a location, find a location, and to attack different regions. And that is why it has reached to a next level of astropolitics. So, in this joint statement, the India and USA has issued in the Washington that they showed that there will be a space situational awareness memorandum, that is SSA, that is there will be a memorandum of understanding for the space assurance sector by both India and the USA in order to cooperate the compensation and develop a consensus to cooperate in the region both for military as well as civilian purposes to in order to challenge the influence of Chinese influence in the region, which is both beneficial to India as well as USA, which wants to claim and which wants to reclaim its position the global leader, and India, which is an emerging power. It has better credibility, better efficiency, and more cost efficient ISRO system. So with the technology and our efficiency of the USA and India can definitely prove a major player in the space sector, and we can be a leader and the front runner in that particular sector. So the space situational awareness involves basically two things, that is momenting and the monitoring and the exploration. So in order to monitor the man-made satellites, tracking space weather and the natural weathers. Now the tracking the space weathers are very much important in order accurate weather forecasting. So if we have an accurate weather forecasting, it will very much beneficial, especially in the disaster destruction, disaster preparedness in case of cyclones, tsunamis, other water and climatic hazards. Similarly, we can also be determined our the monsoonal prediction. So if we have a better satellite system and observation, because we know that monsoon not only depends in the Indian Ocean but also in the Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Asian Dipole, SSOD, INSO, El Nino, La Nina. So there is a whole range of factors affecting the monsoon, which is spread all over the Indo-Pacific region. So if we have a better control and information regarding these particular regions, we can definitely control and maintain how the monsoon is going to be affected by these particular regions and these particular sources or these particular devices. So we can easily monitor the space weather, and then by predicting the popular monsoonal character or the weather character, it can definitely affect or it can definitely augment our farmers in cropping these particular areas. So better augmenting the farmers in the particular area will help in the better agricultural production. So space exploration is not only for important the military purpose but also for the agricultural and economic purpose. Similarly, these surveillance satellites can very much useful in the fishing sector. So by the use of specialized observation, we can know and we can track the movement of flocks of fish, schools of fish, and so the fisherman can be easily benefited by the way it is moving. So be disaster preparedness, agriculture, fisheries, mines exploration, resource exploration, All these things are very much useful and can be easily done with the help of proper satellite and space sector. So definitely the more we are able to accurate, the more we are able to efficiate our ways to reach the space, and more we can reduce the cost effectiveness, we will be a better player in this particular sector. We can sell this technology, we can be a leading global leader in dealing with the technology, we can assist the world with technology, and we can gain the revenue from that, and that can be a major economic boost in India becoming a 5 trillion economy. So that is very important. US and Indian delegation have also discussed an initiative that is called Artemis Accords. That initiative particularly seeks to develop an activity in the moon and other planetary objects. So in order to have some observations and explorations in the moon and related objects, there has been an important accord. So this is very important, especially from the PT point of view, that what is Artemis Accord. So Artemis Accord is nothing, it is an initiative signed between US and India regarding exploration and other observations in the moon and the nearby planetary objects. These planetary objects can be asteroids, satellites, meteors, etc. So this new space working group that will also be set by the Quad. So Quad will also set up a new space working group, that is SSWG. So there is a positive field in the better future for the cooperation in the space sector. What India needs to do is pave its way to lead this Quad and get benefit maximum from it. So Delhi has undertaken definitely some reforms, like allowing the private investment FDIs in the space sector, allowing the people, especially for the commercial use, to invest, getting better facilities so we can launch better rockets, better satellites with cost efficiency and other technical cutting edge technologies. It has also taken steps to cope up the unfolding military challenges. We have developed an anti-space satellites also in the mission Shakti. So definitely we have done a lot, but still we need to do a lot, change our administrative and bureaucratic structure, similarly the bureaucratic structure, to maintain the red tapeism and allow the easy flow of investment in order to make better facilities available and to growth in the space sector and the space infrastructure, which in the coming times will lead to better space learned individuals, better individuals in knowledge in this space technology, and we can definitely lead in the world in the gaining terms. For this we need, yes, more urgent and sweeping reforms, both in terms of policy making, also in terms of implementation and proper bureaucratization as well. Moving on to the next important article is about the way of speaking. This is basically related to the ethics, that is, which deals with accountability and responsibility. So what is the accountability and responsibility of elected leaders, especially the leaders like chief ministers? Recently the chief minister of Tripura, Shri Biplab Kumar Devji, has commented something about wrong about the Supreme Court, that the civil servants, they need not to fear about the contempt of court, they have to do their duty. Although his intention was correct, that he really wanted to help the people, that he really wanted to say that if you are doing any kind of duty, you are serving the people, and if you are not afraid of the Supreme Court, that doesn't matter. So don't worry about the contempt of court, just serve the people. But the only thing is, it is not being said by any common man. He is an elected chief minister, he is a symbol of a democracy, and in democracy, in a parliamentary system, judiciary is an important organ of the government, and similarly judiciary, legislative and executive, all three are important organs of the government, and all three organs will have to respect as well as to give credit to each other. And if he is becoming a member of the legislative parliament, Vidhan Sabha, and he is criticizing the Supreme Court, he is saying his executive officers to not to worry about the Supreme Court contempts, it is a vague in the democratic level. Such statements cannot be made because it hinders the accountability as well as the responsibility of these leaders. So what are these reasons? So in a democracy, power flows from the people, and elected government acts as the custodian of the mandate. That is very, very important, because at the end of the day, democracy means for the people, of the people, and by the people. So those who are sitting on the chairs, especially on the legislative chairs, are not the one who will be sitting there, but they are our representatives. So we as the people has given them the rights to sit. So the basic intent is they are our representative. They should work in such a manner that our lives will be better, but they should are not able to malign the figure. Okay, the political class often thinks that it can justify their deeds, but it is not. And that is why there has been reportedly assured the bureaucrat that did not need to be fair in order to contempt of court, and that is very very wrong, especially in the case of accountability. One organ of government cannot claim the another argument, because at the end of the day it maligns the figures of the democratic system, which is not good for a healthy and evolving democracy. The threat of contempt of court was no tiger. The way he said, that the contempt of court is not a tiger, they will not eat you, you better do your work and don't worry for the contempt of court. But it is not like that. If the political leaders, the elected leaders, the officials are not going to respect the Supreme Court, are not going to worry about their contempt of the court, what will happen if the criminals or some bad elements or the anti-social elements are not going to respect the court? So it lies in our own hand that we respect the Supreme Court, we respect the judgments, we respect the contempt, because at the end of the day, if the dignity of the Supreme Court is maligned, their decision making power, their judgment will be maligned, and this is going to hamper the common people. And that is why, being the representative of the common people, these political leaders are bound to act in accordance to the law, in accordance to the constitution, and where, since the Supreme Court is the custodian of the constitution, they have to maintain respect of the Supreme Court, as well as, in order to definitely they cannot make any such statements which will provoke others to make a contempt of the court. That is very wrong. Similarly, what happens when many times the political leaders who win elections, they think themselves to be a masters of the kingmakers, and they become a one man leader, strong leadership, which sometimes in the vague blindness of power, they think themselves to be a king or a monarch, which is not in a democracy, but because in a democracy people are actually the supreme. So these should act as a representative and make the function, the role of the government. The better government is that whose works comes into news, not their leaders and the statements. So one, a democracy is a better democracy when the works, the results, the facts, the achievements of the governments are in news, not their leaders or their statements. So we should focus on that. And when the executive seeks to appropriate the exercises of power, it is the judiciary, because at the end of the day, people move to judiciary for their own resolution. Judiciary is the only and the last sort of resort, the last resort which makes justice to the people. So whenever even executive or legislative are not doing their work, it is a judiciary which forces, which allows them, which tells them, to hinders them to do their work. So judiciary is the final sort of justice, so it should be equally respected and allowed to be respected as well. Moving on to another important topic about the Quad. Recently, we had heard about AUKUS, that is Australia, UK, US being informed, and Quad is also there. So the writer is also discussing some of the challenges before Quad, and that is very important. So we have discussed what are the challenges before the Quad and how Quad can prove itself and how Quad can test itself in these challenging times. So better some important challenges of 3 C's, like the critical conditions of COVID, climate change, and cooperation, cyber security. So how in these particular regions we can maintain. So Quad is not an alliance just like a similar alliance like the AUKUS. So it is a better grouping, and it aims to secure open Indo-Pacific, but it is not a full-fledged security pact that we have already discussed. Why? Because it is not having any agenda against the military or the strategic cooperation. It is only supports a Indo-Pacific open border that is free of flow in the South China Sea or in the Indo-Pacific region. No other country should stop or hinder the movement of the cargo or the military uses in the South China Sea. This is a basic objective, and the leaders of Quad have said many times that they are not against any other, rather they are grouping for the better achievements and better freedom of navigations in the South China Sea or the Indo-Pacific regions. And that is why, in comparison to AUKUS, which is a clearly strategic agreement, Quad's objectives are in vague, and which is the very own and the very basic negative point or the shortcoming of the Quad, that its objectives are not very clear, it's vague. And so it is supposed to pursue broader goals, that is the humanitarian relief work, climate change, coordination of technology, supply chains, etc. So none of the specific military alliance, but it is a broader cooperation. So it is not an alliance but a broader cooperation where the leaders of the so-called regions of the major democracies in the Indo-Pacific region sits together and wants for a free, fairer, pluralistic society with the better freedom of navigations, freedom of rights, non-jurisdiction, non-exploitation, etc. But there are some challenges before Quad as well, and these are that it has to acknowledge there is the deep crisis of democracy in the constituent countries as well, be it in other regions like the USA, where the reasons of the democracy are not so well. Recently, we saw that how Donald Trump, the migration or the transfer of power when Trump was elected to Biden was not very smooth. So when USA state itself as the oldest democracy of the world, okay, oldest modern democracy of the world, so it has been seen that the roots of democracy is not very well functioning in the US as well, because be it in the racial discrimination like the Floyd Lloyd case, in the George Floyd case, similarly in the case of Black Lives Matter, the attack on the Capitol. So democracy is not flourishing in these countries as well, so they have to first tighten their own democratic principles, then they can only spread the ideas of democracy and the democratization in the Indo-Pacific region. Second is they are aimed at high Indo-Pacific, but it is not a security alliance. So when you are not in security alliance, how you can aim at a better cooperation and better protection of these countries? So the countries of that particular Indo-Pacific region will not support you unless until you will provide some military backing or a strategic backing. So this is a major challenge. Third is in the critical technologies. What is the root has have to research collaboration. There is none a defined collaboration in terms of technology, cyberspace, etc. Though there has been some vaccination program which is running on track, but it needs to do more in order to achieve the global standards. Fourth one is it is a collaboration in the vaccine assistant, though has been running, but it is not among the third world countries. What has happened? Because in the procurement of the vaccines, USA procured itself, Japan procured itself, Australia procured. So there was not a commitment of the complete Quad mechanism to develop, research and distribute a vaccines. So there it was lacking. Although they have now managed to cooperate and managed to jointly distribute some of the vaccines to third world countries in the Novavax program of the World Health Organization, but there could have been a more better cooperation, especially in the case of their meeting with India, investing some monies in India so that India had developed their own vaccine and vaccination could have been done easily, and especially in the third world countries of the South Asia Pacific, which are very poor countries. So that was not done. What happened? These all rich countries, developed countries, stockpiled a lot of vaccines in the particular region, and that is why in order to cooperate, it was actually a protectionist type of mechanism which gained or which revered the fate of this particular Indo-Pacific in the so-called Quad countries. So the third world countries of the Indo-Pacific regions lost their faith in these developed countries when they saw that these countries are actually first thinking of their own in the process of vaccination or the COVID fighting, whereas India was the only country which distributed many of the vaccines in the friendly gestures or even some of the other regions in order to propagate the better health care. And that is why we could have done more, Quad could have done more, it could have proved an alternative in the process of vaccinations and the COVID relief management. And finally, there is a climate change. All the four countries are not very much specific regarding the climate change. US has a skeptical views because one of the party comes, Donald Trump comes and keeps out of the peace Paris deal, and then similarly Joe Biden comes and enters into the Paris deal. So Paris climate agreement, once a party supports it, another does not support it. So both of the countries are having, with the change in the government, there has been change in the stance of the UN government. So it is not a full-fledged steady deal. So in the field of climate cooperation, be it Australia or America, they are not in the way to cooperate in the global world. They are not giving funds to the developing countries so that they can reduce their carbon emissions. So in these particular regions, Quad can have a better cooperation, but it is not doing so. There is not clear guidelines. So if Quad can cooperate in this particular region, it can definitely be very helpful and can augment AUKUS. So Quad and AUKUS can definitely limit China in the South Chinese Sea, and it will very much beneficial, especially for the India, in order to have a better control not in the Indian Ocean but also in the Indo-Pacific region, the South China Sea region as well. So this is all for today's news. We'll see you in the next video. Till then, Jai Hind.